Hey folks, welcome back to the Wikipedia world, and I am Abhinay Gupta. And today we start with a new chapter, right? And the name of the chapter is the appointment and remuneration of managerial personnel, right? Now, if you understand corporate law and if you understand the bifurcation of the chapters, you would notice that every particular chapter deals with an individual aspect of a company. Like, for example, the previous chapter that we picked up, audit and auditor, it dealt completely with the auditors, their appointment, their powers, their roles, their functions, and all those kind of things. You have operational chapters as well, like winding up. How will the entire winding up procedure be taken forward? Other categories of company, like producer company and stuff, right? In these chapters, we're discussing about directors. One chapter we discussed about dividend, government companies, and all those things. So today in this chapter, we will be dealing with a section of the company itself, that is the top management. Nothing to do with the owners of the company, the members, nothing to do with the auditors, nothing to do with the board. This chapter has got everything to be done only with the top management people, right? So when we talk about appointment and remuneration of managerial personnel, so first of all, what we need to understand that we generally fail to do is to understand who managerial personas are, right? Any one of you for whom this is not your first attempt, right? You can just ponder back and understand that when you were preparing for this subject and this chapter for your previous examination, did any one of you even think about getting into the detail and understanding who are these managerial personnel, right? Because once you understand their essence in detail, the chapter becomes very easy because then you relate to each and everything, right? So for that purpose, today's lecture, right, the entire lecture will be dedicated to explaining you who they are, right? Most of you must also have been through the definitions, right? But only going through the definition doesn't give you a feel, right? There are important things that you need to pinpoint and distinguish between the different managerial personas, right or wrong, right? So today we go ahead to understand the definitions, right, of three things: the managing directors, the managers, and the whole time directors. So there are three people about whom we'll be getting into a detailed discussion today, right? So let's start with the managing director, right? So if you look into the definition of a managing director in your Companies Act, you will find it in section 2 subsection 54, right, of the latest Companies Act 2013. It is a three-liner definition. If you want, I can read it out for you. Right? It was not possible for me to write them down on the screen for you because that's not very important. Understand? I only write down things on the screen that you should keep in mind. Visuals, right? The definition is not nothing for you to learn or mug up because you don't have to write the definition anywhere. But there are critical aspects in the definition that you need to understand, and I'll be explaining all of them. So, what you need to focus is when we're talking only about the managing director. Keep this word in mind, right? So, if I go by the definition, so a managing director means a director who, by virtue of the article of the company or an agreement with the company or a resolution passed in the general meeting or by the board of directors, is entrusted with substantial powers of management of the affairs of the company and includes a director occupying the position of managing director by whatever name called. A straight, simple definition, right? But the problem is, half of you are already lost. Half of you are already lost. Why? Because we are not used to such definitions, right? So now let's break these definitions. So, what do they say? A managing director means a director. That is the first thing. So when we say a managing director is a director, means we understand that everything, every clause, every provision which is applicable to a director will also be applicable to a managing director, right? Like if you talk about the tenure, if you talk about rotation, if you talk about powers, if you talk about position, all those things that are applicable to a director will also be applicable to a managing director with some modifications or some extra powers that a managing director will have, distinguishing aspect of a managing director from other director, right? The first thing to understand is that a managing director is a director, right? Now how did that director become a managing director? when he got the power of management, right? And who entrusted the power of management into the managing director? There are four aspects, right? So managing director means a director who, by virtue of article of the company, right? That means the first incident or the first document that will entrust a power on any individual or on any director to become a managing director would be the article of association of the company, right? If nothing is mentioned in the article of association of the company, then a managing director can also be appointed, or the management power can also be given to a director to make him a managing director by an agreement, right? So the company can get into an agreement with the person that, okay, you will be given a substantial power of management. It's not managing means not the day-to-day operation, right? We'll get to that also. Otherwise, if there's no agreement as well, then a resolution can be passed in the general meeting of the members that, okay, we pass a resolution appointing Mr. X and X as the managing director, and hence all these such and such XYZ powers are being given to the managing director, Mr. X, right? Otherwise, even if in the general meeting you do not appoint a managing director or you do not entrust the power of management on the managing director, then a resolution can also be passed in the board of directors, right? So you have a lot of scope open. Either mention it in the article, no. Appoint him in the general meeting, no. Appoint him in the board meeting, no. Write an agreement, sign an agreement, right? So all ways are open to take up a managing director on board, right? That is basically to appoint a director to be a managing director, right? Then if we look, the definition goes forward that after this, by virtue of this is entrusted with substantial powers of management of the affairs of the company. Now this is again something you need to understand. What do we mean by substantial power of management? Right. So to understand substantial power, right, we'll have to first understand what are ordinary powers. Right. So if somebody is given the power of administrative acts of a routine nature that has to be done daily. So somebody who is a director and managing the admin of a company, right, that is not a substantial power. That is not anything different or extraordinary given. That's a routine work in nature, right? So if I go through the explanation of this part about the substantial power, right, then the power to do administrative act of a routine nature, and that too when it is authorized by the board, right, such as if you give them the power to affix the common seal, give them the power to draw checks, endorse checks, draw and endorse the negotiable instrument, right, or sign any certificate of the share certificate, sign the resignation or registration of the transfer shares and stuff, right? All these kind of things that are basically part of the administrative work, which is basically part of the routine work of the company. Why I say routine? Because endorsing and drawing checks and negotiable instrument is a routine nature. It will happen every alternate day or something like that. Right? Affixing common seal on every document you affix a common seal. So it's a routine work. So this does not require substantial power. Because if you do not, because there cannot be just one person who goes on and signs all the checks for the company. Not possible, right? Think logically on that. So these are not substantial powers, right? So apart from this, if we talk about substantial power of management, right? So we are talking about those specific powers which are not generally given to any director. Getting the point? So over here, if I go ahead to say we haven't defined, right, what are substantial powers, right? But understand these are powers beyond the power of a director. If there are certain decisions to be taken, certain actions to be taken, that not any director can do it, right? Then those powers will be given to a managing director. That what an ordinary director cannot do, you can do. Getting the point, right? So there is no definition or there is no explanation about the substantial power, right? But the substantial power has been distinguished by saying that it is not a routine work, right? And understand one more thing, that when a managing director is a director first, so if that director ceases to hold the position as a director, he automatically ceases to hold the position as a managing director, right? Now, second thing that we need to understand is, although we have given substantial powers to a single director, right, and we have given him the position of a managing director, right? Understand when I say that we have given him the position of managing director, means the position. That means somebody who has been given these powers and position is a managing director, no matter whatever name you call that person by, right? Whatever name you want to give. But that person who has those substantial powers, right, and is a director, that person would be deemed to be a managing director. It is not necessary that you give him the name managing director, right? But another thing is that the managing director does not enact or does not go ahead with his own instinct, right? It doesn't mean that if you have given him the substantial power, then he can do anything and everything. No, there are always checks and filters in place, right? So a managing director will always exercise his power subject to the superintendent's control and direction of the board, right? So the board will supervise, they will control, and they will direct the actions of a managing director. So board is a supremacy power, if you can see in the management. Board, why we say board is because when a board takes a decision, right, it's a voting system done within the directors of the company, and the majority prevails, right? And then that decision is the decision of the board. So board is the supreme power, and then any individual comes into play, right? So a managing director, he is a subordinate to the board of directors, right? And his authority can also be revoked by the board of directors. So you see, when he's appointed or when somebody is given the power or the position of a managing director, it can be done via the article, via an agreement in the general meeting and in the meeting of the board, right? So if board has been given the power to levy these power on an individual, right, then board also has the power to revoke these powers. Getting the point? So are you now clear with who a managing director is specifically and what is his position, right? Now understand, we are talking about managing director, somebody who has been given substantial powers. So don't you think two or more than two people can also be given those powers? We're not talking about any specific power that, okay, this is the verdict, like he's the judge of the court. No, we're talking about lawyers. We're talking about people who have the substantial power of management. So two or more than two directors of the company may also be entrusted with substantial powers of management. Thus, a company can have two or more than two managing directors at the same time, right? But what the company cannot have is a managing director and a manager both at the same time, right? So the next definition that we'll understand is the definition of manager. And a company cannot have a managing director and a manager at the same time. That will conclude when we complete the discussion about the definition of manager, right? Now there can also be a question that when we're talking about a managing director, right? So first that person is a director, and when he's a director, all the provisions that is applicable to a director shall also apply to a managing director, right? So if you remember, there was a provision of rotation with the directors. Directors are of two types, rotational and non-rotational. Now, which category of the two will fall into the managing director is a question. A little tricky one, right? And the answer is, as per the definition, a managing director is a director. So if the director is rotational, he'll also be rotational. If the director is non-rotational, he'll also be non-rotational. So don't apply your brain. It's not required. Law is foolproof defined. So when law says he's a director, means he's a director. So first a director, then a managing director. So as a director, what position does he hold? Rotational or non-rotational is what you need to check. If as a director he's rotational, he'll be rotational here. If as a director he's non-rotational, he'll be non-rotational over here. It is as simple as that. Okay? Now, beyond that, again understand that there is a concept of additional director as well. Can an additional director be a managing director? The answer is yes. Because what does the definition say? It says that you have to be a director. Now, what kind of director you need to be, the definition doesn't emphasize on, right? So any director, man, any director can be a managing director. It's as simple as that. Right? So when the additional director, his tenure expires, the tenure of managing director will also expire. And if the additional director is reappointed, the managing director also regains the position. Right? So everything is dependent upon his position and his role and his tenure as a director. Right? There is no particular tenure given to a managing director that, yeah, if you have become a managing director, you stay here for 5 years, and the director has already been there for 4 years, for 9 years, like that. No, not possible, right? So that is about the managing director. Next, we see the definition of manager, right? Now, manager is a very clear-cut term. Not the manager like you must have seen in your firms. right? Because when you talk about the firm and we talk about manager, or nowadays, as per the hierarchy system, if we see, a manager is one of the lowest position in the management, right? You have seniors, you have executives, and then you have AMs, and then manager, and then senior manager, and then your assistant directors and directors. That is in the case of firm, right? And in the case of a company, you have VPs, AVPs, GMs, you have manager, senior manager, deputy manager, assistant manager, all sorts of managers and stuff. So we're not talking about that manager, right? As per law, if I go ahead with the definition of manager, then a manager means an individual who, subject to the superintendent's control and direction of the board of directors, has the management of the whole or substantially the whole of the affairs of the company, right? And that would include a director or any other person occupying the position of a manager by whatever name called, and were under a contract of service or not. Again, the definition went bouncer for most of you. Don't worry, it goes bouncer for me as well, right? But when we break the definition into parts and analyze, we remember it, right? So let's break it into parts. The first, a manager is an individual, right? Who works under the superintendent's control and direction of the board. So they say he's any individual, they don't say he's a director. Like if you refer back to the definition of managing director, they said a managing director is a director, but a manager need not necessarily be a director. First point to notice, right? But again, in the end, they say they also include a director or any other person. So even a director can be a manager, but it is not necessary that a manager will always be a director, right? Second, if we again see the difference, a managing director was entrusted with substantial powers, and a director is entrusted with a substantial section of management. Conflict, right? They have substantial power that they can do anything with the management, right? They have the power under again the superintendent's control and direction of the board. Same is here. Even the manager is under the superintendent's control and direction of the board, but has the management right of whole or substantially the whole of affairs of the company. So there's a conflict, right? So the company cannot have at the same time, they cannot employ a manager and a managing director both, right? This is to be kept in mind. Okay, moving ahead, if we understand more things, that if when they say it includes director or any other person who's occupying the position of the manager, so again the designation is not important, right? So now you understand in the hierarchy why do you have managers at the lower level, because they are not actual managers by the term definition by the law. But because the law has given that space that okay, we will term that person as a manager of the company who is managing the company by whatever name called, right? So the name or designation is not important. What is important is that somebody is holding the position of the manager, right? And next most important thing that we need to understand is that a manager has been given the power to manage the whole or substantially the whole of the affairs of the company. That means if I've already given the whole of the affairs of the company to one person, can I ever give it to any other person? The answer is no. It's already given, right? So unlike managing director, you cannot have more than one manager in a company. Are you getting the point? Right? You should understand that. Next, if we move ahead. So next we talk about the definition of the whole-time director, right? So I hope the definition and the meaning of a managing director and a manager is clear with you, and you know the difference between the two also, right? Now we get back to the third position, that is the whole-time director. The definition of the whole-time director is the smallest definition of the three, right? As per section 2, it is defined under clause 94 of section 2, right? So section 2 subsection, or sorry, clause 94, it says a whole-time director includes a director in the whole-time employment of the company. That's it. right? So whole-time director is not a very major position. First of all, you need to understand it is not a distinguished and a specific position or empowering somebody for something different. It just says that okay, there are a lot of directors in the company. All of those directors who are working whole time with the company are whole time directors, and the other are not whole time directors. Getting the point, right? Like if I say there's a company, right, and I am already into a directorship of that company, but I don't go to the office on a whole time basis. It's only the board meetings that I attend. It's only some supervision or licensing work that I go through. Some of the financials that I need to check. That's it, right? I'll not be naming all those things over here, but yeah, you can find that on my LinkedIn profile, right? so, so over there, I'm not a whole-time director. I'm not, right? But people on the board who are managing day-to-day operation and there and day in day out, they're working every day. They go to the office on a scheduled basis. They are the whole-time directors, right? Okay. Let's not talk much about that. Let's get back to our whole-time director concept. So if we analyze the definition of a whole-time director, right, then we need to understand that if when there's a person who is into whole-time employment with the company, right, that means a whole-time employee, when he becomes a director, we call him a whole-time director, right? So an appointment of a whole-time employee as an alternate director will also amount to the appointment of a whole-time director, right? So similarly, there's a branch manager or any other person, right, who is managing a substantial position or anything, who are there for a long time and will be there for a long time and managing the day-to-day operation and stuff. When they are appointed as a director of the company, we say they're whole-time directors, right? So basically, a whole-time director is a director who is entrusted with the day-to-day management of the company, right? Like I am not interested with the day-to-day management of the company. I only look after the India operation, and that too only in the board meetings, right? Even in India, what they are doing, right? I don't care about it. When I say I don't care, means I don't have a say in that. It's their operation, they are expanding into India right now, so they're just going on, bang on. What I have to make sure is to follow the legal process of that because they needed a residential director, a resident director, as you know, as per the Company Act 113, companies, the MNCs, they need a resident director as well, right? So I'm just a resident director. I take care of the boards and I move on. That's just my role, right? But unlike me, if there's a whole-time director in the company, that person looks after the entire operation, right? So when a person who is not an employee of the company and then that person, when appointed as a director, right, that person will occupy the position as an ordinary director and he does not become a whole-time director. Now that is my example. I was not the employee of the company, right? I went for the interview as a director as well, only, and I was taken in as a director and an ordinary director. I'm not a whole-time director. I have nothing to do with the operations of the company, right? So a company may at the same time employ two or more than two whole-time directors. Understand all the directors who are operating in the company on the daily basis are all whole-time directors, right? So it's rare to find one whole-time director in a company, unless it's a very small company, right? And a company can have a whole-time director and a manager, a whole-time director and a managing director, and all those things. Because if there was a restriction on this, then understand the company will have at least one whole-time director, right? And if the company has one whole-time director, they cannot have a manager or a managing director. So what was the point of the concept, right? So how many managing directors are there in a company has nothing to do with the appointment of a managerial person, other managerial personnel, like the manager or the managing director, right? So if I have one whole-time director, I have 10 whole-time director. It will not affect my appointment of a managing director or a manager. But if I have a manager, I cannot appoint a managing director. If I have a managing director, I cannot appoint a manager. There it clashes. And if I have a manager, I cannot appoint another manager. But if I have a managing director, I can appoint another managing director. Right? So that's the combination that you need to understand. Whole-time director is always there. Out of that, apart from that, you can either have only one manager or one MD or more than one MD. That's it. Okay. So that was all about the managerial personnel that we'll be studying for going ahead in the chapter, right? This was the definition, this was the understanding. Now I hope you all understand who is a managing director, who is a manager, and who is a whole-time director. So that when we refer to these names further in the chapter, right, you can relate to their basics. And then the understanding of the chapter goes very smooth, right? I'll also be reflecting it with the flow of the chapter, right, so that it is easy for you to understand. Okay? So that's all for the day. I'll see you guys back in the next lecture. Until then, this is Abhinay Gupta signing off. Thank you and bye bye.